Lavasioth. You know him. There's not a particularly high chance that you love him. You gotta feel at least a little bit bad for this guy. A fairly obscure second generation monster, managed to find his way into Generations Ultimate without that much fanfare, who then got gutted and retooled for Worlds, slapped on a Giratotus model that didn't fit him, and handed Agnactor mechanics that didn't function properly for him. Barely fought and left with a prevailing legacy of mostly apathy or straight up distaste. Bereft of his height and many of his original attacks. Poor fish boy, honestly. But is there something worth digging deeper for? Is all truly lost with every version of Lavasioth across every game? Was Lavasioth ever good? Well, Frontier is a game that typically has a lot of very solid combat design, and it's where Lavasioth is originally from. Maybe what we're looking for can be found there. Maybe we just need to turn our fishy friend up to 11 and just see what he's fully capable of. My name is Connor, and this is Frontier Firsthand, Lavasioth. So with Lavasioth, he has multiple main series versions, and the Freedom Unite fight, which is the closest to the Frontier incarnation, is more than likely the one you are the least familiar with. It's the oldest of the three, and both of the other two are on consoles that are actively being pushed out and the games are being sold, so decent chance you actually haven't fought the Freedom Unite one, at least not much. And then, I don't know, comparing the Worlds version with the Frontier fight isn't worth all that much because they're so removed from one another. And talking about all four altogether kind of defeats the purpose of this being a Frontier video. Though, hey, I'd be down to give Lavasioth as a whole his own video sometime down the road. He's got a pretty interesting history to follow. So, unlike the Hypnocatrice video, I have less of a reason to break down Lavasioth's Freedom Unite version. He just has more of a life of his own divorced from his Frontier incarnation than, say, Hypnocatrice or Espinaz have. So let's get into the basics then. The base version of Lavasioth in Frontier in both low and high rank, the original version of the creature, and see what he's got. Lavasioth, at the start of his Frontier career, is pretty alright. I'd say he's a bit better, more fun, and more interesting than Plesioth, and that goes extra for Cephadrome. Not a high bar, for sure, but for a second generation Piscine Wyvern, he's not bad at all. Lavasioth will begin the engagement in the lava lakes of the volcano. Note that in Frontier, he will immediately take aggro against you when you enter the arena, and won't need for you to run around and try to get his attention with Sonic Bomb or wandering into his peripheral vision like you need to do in Freedom Unite. So the fight's a little bit more snappier in that respect. From there, he won't keep you waiting too long. He might decide to partially jump from the lava vertically and fire off a magma shot towards you, though more likely he will jump out of the lava completely, twist in midair, and use the slap of his tail against the lava to send 2 volleys of magma blasts firing at the battlefield. A volley of 3 will hit, then a volley of 2, making a bit of a staggered pyramid shape. These are super easy to avoid unless you're clinging to the shores of the lava lake like a complete idiot, which you shouldn't be doing. He's not going to land anywhere close to there. From there, you'll be able to tell that he's going to be coming up on land as he'll poke his head out, look both ways, dip back down before springing out of the lava immediately into what I affectionately call the Piscine Death Wriggle. You know the attack. They all do it, body on the ground and wiggling around with one giant lingering full body hitbox. So yeah, he's going to get right into the action pretty quick. Not like Plesioth where he's going to be swimming back and forth and maybe lasering and then ducking back down and then maybe lasering again and then over and over again. And you know, maybe after 2 minutes he'll come up out of the water. Nope, he'll throw out like an attack or two, then come immediately out to fight ya, and doesn't go back into the lava for a good long while after that anyway. So a lot snappier than the other Piscine Wyverns of the time, which like to just kind of run the clock on you. Alright, so the big boy is up out of the lava and is towering over the battlefield. What's he got? Well, he's got your standard Wyvern hip check, and he's got that small Wrath bite attack that you should be pretty accustomed to. Most flying Wyverns of the second generation have these moves. Interestingly though, he does not have your traditional Wyvern 360 tail spin. Instead, he has the Bloss's double hitting tail sweeps that hit behind him on either side. He can do the attack on its own, and he can also use it as an immediate follow-up after any use of the Piscine Death Wriggle if he wants. Speaking of, if Lavasioth dips his head down, squats, and lets out a roar, he will immediately lunge forwards and go into the Piscine Death Wriggle. Yes, I will continue to call it by its full legal name, thank you. I wasn't actually going to, but then I wrote that line out and I thought it was kind of funny, so now I'm locked into a contract with myself. Additionally, he has a single-shot lava projectile breath attack that's almost the exact same thing to Rathalos's. It has the same wind-up animation, and it's the best time to hit him in the head. Careful though, the hitbox on this attack is active as the fireball is leaving his mouth, so if you're right next to the mouth, you might get hit. You'll want to be a little bit more towards the middle of the head or closer to the back of the head. The issue is way worse in Freedom Unite, by the way. That fireball can hit you even if you're positioned partway down his neck. We will talk about this projectile a bit more later. His other big move is a jumping body slam. He'll squat, then look upwards before lunging into the air and smashing down hard. This attack deals a lot of damage and also causes tremors around him. This is definitely Lavasioth's most effective weapon. Though in Frontier, it definitely gets power crept. It's honestly pretty terrifying in Freedom Unite. The leap has a solid tilt to it, but it's quick, it's huge, and the tremors have a decent radius. If you're at his legs and trying to hack at him, there's a decent chance you might get caught by this, and unless you have a lance or a weapon that can fade slash, you cannot roll backwards away from the slam. For all intents and purposes, it's a pretty scary move that teaches the player not to overextend and not to get greedy. It's a lethal weapon that Lavasioth always has on deck while being fairly communicated and definitely avoidable if one is careful. For its time, it is an effective attack, making the limitations of early Monster Hunter feel all the more terrifying. But with what Frontier will eventually become and what hunters in that game will be able to do, and nowadays it's just kind of a neat jumping attack. Oh, and it is worth knowing that the tremors only hit at his sides, not at his face, so sticking to his head can keep you safe from this slam attack. The lunging Piscine Death Wriggle is another attack worth worrying about. The lunge itself and the Piscine Death Wriggle are separate attacks. You may block or evade one, and yet get hit by the other if you don't have a prevailing guard or didn't get out of the way completely. I did some testing running around with shield bashes in Frontier, and if my positioning was bad, I could intersect the lunge, yet still get hit by the Piscine Death Wriggle. You want to do one of three things. Either be sufficiently in front of him and absorb both hits, or you could stay at an ample distance at his side and run in either the opposite direction that he's moving, or just turn sharply because he can't turn all that sharply himself while he's doing this, or you can just let him lunge directly over you, do the Piscine Death Wriggle, and you can follow behind him at a safe distance. You just want to watch out for the tail sweep follow-up afterwards. For the love of God, do not try to iframe into this attack. Rolling to the side can even be risky considering that the hitbox for this move is a bit bigger than his body. It is especially heinous in Freedom Unites. Again, positioning is your friend while fighting this guy. It's another move where the scariness falls away in late game Frontier, but I think it's worth mentioning how imposing it can be for the time that it was created. Who knows, maybe someone watching this wants to run Frontier Forward 5 instead of Zenith, and you know, it's perfectly applicable advice for the Freedom Unite version of Lavasioth as well. Now we gotta talk about the fireballs, and this is gonna transition us into the hardcore Lavasioth fights. First of all, they are unblockable, so guard +2 is recommended if you're running a shielded weapon. And not even because the projectile is unblockable, but also because this fight is kind of annoying with iframes. See, the lava blasts he fires off will explode on impact with the ground into these burning rocky fragments. And these fragments can in fact deal damage, they aren't just there for visual flair. I tried a few times to dodge directly into the oncoming fireballs with iframes, which is often a surefire trick you can use to evade fireballs and then push through to the monster and punish that attack. But the lingering damage left by the lava blast exploding and then the kicked up rock debris can result in you still getting hit, even if you get the iframes off on the initial move. In his hardcore fight, he gains a move where he can rapidly fire off 3 lava shots in an arc, one after the other. I've been able to dodge one, only to then stand up into the shrapnel of the second one. Now, what you can do is iframe the attack before it makes impact. Essentially, if you're approaching and already really up close, he may fire the lava shot and you'll be able to roll through. It's really just the explosion and the aftershock of the attack that you want to look out for. Tonfas work alright against Lavasioth. They are perfectly fine simply due to the fact that they have such insane movement, but conventionally trying to roll through his attacks with a sword and shield just felt messy and very unintuitive. Blocking these fireballs feels fine. Once the initial explosion goes off, the shrapnel goes outwards, so it's not going to bother you that much. Honestly, I think this fight was built much more for blocking than evading. You just need that guard +2. Trying to dodge around the Piscine Death Wriggle is kind of annoying, and if you can't dodge away from him fully, you're just going to get struck by the lingering hitbox, but blocking can soak up the entire dash. You don't have to dive out of the way into the sides of his body slam attack if you can absorb the whole impact with a shield, and the lava bomb debris can't hit you if you're not moving into them just by sitting still and tanking. It's simply a much better experience, I've found. You just need to pay that little bit of skill tax. Speaking of the body slam, the hardcore Lavasioth has a pretty cool variation of the move where after he comes back down, he will actually tunnel beneath the molten ground, the force of which will send exploding magma kicking up and hitting in these four corners around where he made impact. A fifth lava blast will then hit dead center where he hit the ground on a slight delay. He will then tunnel towards a hunter, breach out from under the rocky floor, which will kick up another 4 lava blasts, and he will immediately go into the Piscine Death Wriggle after that. Pretty cool spectacle, not too tough to dodge either. If you're really close, you should be safe from the raining magma. You just need to be mindful about the slam itself and then make sure you back out before the lava blast hits you where he landed. It's a half-decent little test of spatial awareness and a cool-looking move. The biggest downside is that it doesn't really leave many openings. He goes immediately from the leap to the slam, to the dig, to the breach, to the Piscine Death Wriggle. And then he's just back up and moving, same as always. There's no real pause, there's not a lot of chances to hit him in the midst of his moves here. It's a bit of a just sit around and wait and watch kind of move where he just keeps moving around and his whole body's an active hitbox for most of the animation. Now, if you're running a lance with Reflect, you can turn this into a damage buffet as he tosses out so many hitboxes all at once, and you can turn all of them against him. It is worth noting that Lavasioth will only sometimes perform this version of the attack. It is not a permanent change, and the regular belly flop can still be performed. The two versions have the same impact timings as well. What is permanent is an addition made to the Piscine Death Wriggle. I am going to beat this attack name into your brains. This is what propaganda sounds like. Get used to it. So, anytime the Piscine Death Wriggle is performed, he will now kick up more of these flaming lava rocks around him. Now, these are pretty easy to anticipate. They will fly up at his sides, and it makes this kind of cone shape in the trajectory that is moving. That means that standing directly behind the Piscine Death Wriggle is incredibly safe, as the center of that cone is pretty much vacant of the flying lava rocks. Meanwhile, approaching from his sides is now much more dangerous. I don't really have a good way to segue into this attack, but he also gets the Bird Wyvern Enraged Hop, kind of out of nowhere. Yeah, he just gets it. You know how Yankaku and Gypsaros can chip damage you by hopping up and down when they're mad? They put that on hardcore Lavasioth. It's weird, but yeah, no, watch out for it. There's several hits of damage if you don't move. And the last new thing is that he gains another impressive looking new attack where he rears up and tosses his head around, firing off these arcing mortar shot lava projectiles at wild angles. This is an attack that feels inconsistent, even though it actually isn't. The move feels very free for you to punish. It's a ranged attack hitting far from him. It takes a couple of seconds for him to perform it, and it leaves his legs completely exposed. If you are already up close, you can just kinda hack at him. What felt inconsistent is that sometimes while punishing this attack, I would get struck from some incoming lava shrapnel, and there were other times where that just didn't happen, even though I wasn't actively avoiding the projectiles. This made me wonder if all of his lava debris attacks were random or had some kind of degree of randomness to them. So I looked over some of the footage of some of the other moves, slowed things down, and no, it looks pretty consistent. So I checked back with the footage of this artillery barrage attack and found that, yeah, no, the lava rocks do hit between his legs each time. And the times I wasn't getting hit were ones where I was more to the outside of his legs rather than between them. Yeah, I'll give the developers props for this. They did a pretty cool job making projectiles that feel very chaotic and random and all over the place, even though they actually aren't. And that is what we have to cover for Frontier's version of Lavasioth, all the way up to his toughest state. With a blocking weapon, he's okay. A little more fun in the physical department when compared to Hypnocratrus, but being struck in the back by magma shrapnel is always a possibility with this fight, and it's not the most fun thing in the world. He is extremely reliant on using all the kicked up magma chunks and rock debris to catch you off guard and snipe multiple hunters at once. It's effective enough, but I won't lie and say that it's terribly enthralling to engage with. He's also got a lot of stop the fight and look at me moves, like when he goes swimming into the lava or does the lava a backed power dive. Against a weapon that can block consistently, he does start to fall apart, and the sheer amount of hitboxes he can sometimes fling around means that you can use his attacks to chip him to death pretty effectively with the reflect skill. I find that to be far and away the most fun option. Traditional iframe rolling is very finicky here, and so much of him is always so high off the ground that Tonfas can struggle to get purchase. I fought him several times, and I never loved the bouts, except maybe with Switch Axe, but that's less so because of him and more so because I just blitzed the hell out of him because Switch Axe in this game is nuts. Well, that's a bit of a bummer. He's not all that much better here than he is in Freedom Unite or World and Iceborne. Yeah, the hitboxes are better here than in Freedom Unite, and the asinine armor mechanic is nowhere to be found, but all the tiny lava rocks everywhere and having that be the main overarching gimmick on about half of his moves is just nowhere close to how good this game can get. So what, does this guy just not work? Has Lavasioth ever been good? Well, now, keep your eyes on the channel. There is another Frontier Lavasioth that needs to be covered, as well as some pretty wacky relatives of him, too. Things are only going to get better from here on out for our friend. Also, there's the GU Lavasioth. It's honestly just really solid. They reworked him a good amount. It's not life-changing or anything, but it's easily the best one. If you have the game, go try it out. And hey, if you want to hear me go into greater detail about what happened to Lavasioth in World and Iceborne, I broke it down for a buddy in the stream clip I posted over on my second channel, Volcanic Overflow. In fact, there's a ton of stream highlight clips and other cool secondary content you can go check out over there. But as for right now, this has been CR-Volcanic or Connor. I'll see you around.